Hi, everybody. My name is John Clayton. I'm your host this evening. I don't even think of myself as a host tonight because it's going to be more of a hang, more of a conversation. But you've tuned in to Jazz Cruise Conversations Live, and it's really a pleasure to have you in my little music hole here and invite to our discussion the person that is the focus and the woman of the hour. She is an awesome bass player. I don't mean like okay, I mean awesome bass player. But just to be a double threat and probably some talents I don't know about, she could be a triple or quadruple threat. Definitely a double threat because she's also a fabulous singer. And you don't often find, bass players that can sing at a high level as well as play at a high level. She does that. She's going to give us information about her background. She's from Australia, and it's going to fill us in on all those things. And we're just going to have a nice little bass brother and sister hang that you are a part of. So welcome, and let us all welcome Nicki Parrott, ladies and gentlemen.
G'day, everyone. G'day, John.
Nicki,
here.
great to see you.
Great to see you too.
So are you doing okay at home? Where's home for you?
Home is Brookfield, Connecticut.
Okay, you're in Connecticut.
So it's about an hour and 20 minutes north of New York City, straight up.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty rural area of Connecticut, and it's nice. I feel very fortunate to have been quarantining here because there's room, and it's a nice area, lots of nature. That's where I've been for about 8-9 years. Before that, I was in Brooklyn, New York City, and then made the move up here to Connecticut.
And before that, let's just keep going backwards.
Oh, backwards. Short stint in Manhattan, and then before that, Sydney, Australia.
Uh-huh.
Before that would be where I was born, Newcastle, Australia.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
You went to Sydney to study, to family move there, or?
No, actually, I did move to Sydney to study. I left high school and went straight to Sydney to study at the New South Wales Conservatorium. Oh. I knew the bass teacher there, great bass player called Craig Scott, and he said, "Sure, I'll teach you. You'll be my first female student." I said, "Okay, that's good for me." And so I did an associate diploma jazz degree in jazz studies course at the conservatorium. And I lived in Sydney freelancing for about 6 years before moving to New York.
Uh-huh. And what brought you to New York? What drew you to New York?
I visited in 1991, and I spent a month in New York, and went to Bradley's was around, and Fat Tuesdays and all these clubs. I stayed in Manhattan and just went out and heard as much music as I could. And I went back and I thought, I really should try to go to New York for more. I was sort of hungry for more. So I applied for a Arts Council study grant, and I was fortunate to get that 3 years later in 1994 it was. And so I came over, and I said to my mum and dad at the airport, I said, I'll just see you in 6 months. But after 6 months, it was, you're only just scratching the surface of what's possible in a city like New York.
Of course.
So I stayed. I did day jobs. I did whatever I could to stay in New York. And I studied with Rufus Reid, actually. And it was his letter to the Arts Council that enabled me to come to New York. So I was very grateful to Rufus Reid, and I studied privately with him. And Homer Mensch, wonderful classical bass player, I'm sure you've heard of.
Sure.
And that's how it started. I just had to stay.
And then you just found that opportunities kept kind of presenting themselves to you so you could play different kinds of musics and play with more bands and play with more people, etc. It just happened naturally.
Yes. And when I came there, I really wanted to well, actually I did do a day job in fashion for about 9 months.
Mhm, mhm.
And then after that, I was like, well, I didn't come to New York to be, getting up at the crack of dawn and getting the subway to and working in the fashion. It's something I didn't really know much about, and I was a fish out of water.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get back to music, and so then I took every gig possible. I taught myself electric bass
Ah,
at that time so that I could do more club dates,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
in New York, and
Club dates
you
are
know,
are are what in California we call those casuals, parties
casuals. I
and
say, yeah.
and whatever. But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, weddings, everything, and there was quite a bit of work of that kind in the '90s, and I was sponsored by a woman called Kit McClure. She had a band, an all-women band, so she sponsored me for an artist visa. So I was able to be here legally,
Yeah.
play, and that was a godsend. That was great that she did that for me. It was wonderful.
Wow. Do you find that the this is a good bass player question. Do you find that you feel like the bass picked you, or did you actually pick the bass?
Well, actually, my sister had a band, and she wanted a bass player for her band,
Uh,
and she was my older sister, and and so she said, "If you want to be in my band, you have to play the bass." And so that's how it happened. I wanted to be in her band, and if she'd said, "Well, actually, I need a bassoon player for my band," I guess we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But she really wanted a bass player.
that's
And so in that sense, I fell in love with the bass after around the same time I did fell in love with jazz.
mhm, mhm.
And then once I started, listening and transcribing bassists and teaching myself once again how to, and in the beginning until I went to Sydney.
Mm,
Um, and then, yeah, and then the sound, and because I played flute and piano first.
mhm, mhm.
So I was used to kind of switching from instrument to instrument. That didn't really scare me,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
and the
Wow.
bass is not, as you know, the bass is not a user-friendly instrument. It's hard to get around. So I had to backtrack, and I was still trying to get rid of bad habits. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
it requires a good technique to get around the instrument.
yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah, way yeah, it's similar for me too. A different story, but the common denominator is that I didn't know really. I looked at it and I thought, I want to do that. Didn't even know what it sounded like. I was 13 years old.
wow.
So I just went in the band room, said, "Can I play that thing instead of the tuba that I signed up for?" And
Ah,
and that's how it happened. And like you start playing it, and then you fall in love with it. And I
yeah,
think in that for that reason, the bass is sort of choosing you
right.
because if you didn't like the way it sounded, you go, "Okay, well, that was enough of that," and move on to the next instrument.
That's true.
You know,
That's very, very true.
that's kind of what that's
Yeah,
what
very
are
true.
what are some of those beautiful things about the bass that's to even now attract you?
Actually, I just want to ask you, how old were you when
Uh,
you switched tuba to bass?
well, I didn't play the tuba. I looked in the band room. The band
Yep,
director said, "What do you want to play?" And I looked
yep,
up and said, "That big thing over there," and it was tuba. And then I looked up as I was leaving the room. I said, "Ooh, can I play those things and
yeah.
those instead?" So that's how that. I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow, okay, very
How
young,
about
okay.
you started bass?
Sorry, how old was I?
Yeah,
About, 15.
yeah. That's the
Yeah,
thing. um, Nowadays, it's easier to start bass at an earlier age, as you know, because they have smaller instruments.
that's right, half sizes and yep,
Exactly. But back then, you'd have these instruments that, even though they might have been a little bit smaller, I don't know, they were still unwieldy and
yes,
they were big. So you've got these little kids that are 12, 13, whatever, even before, that are trying to play this big thing, and it's just so awkward until
yes,
you. So now, because of the scale down sizes, you don't have to
yep,
worry about that as much anymore, which is very cool.
it is very, very cool. You're right about that.
So those are those
Yeah.
challenges of the instrument that people don't real. What kind of challenges, physical challenges, did you have to overcome in playing the bass?
Oh, carrying it. It's still carrying it.
I'm still
Uh,
trying to work on that one.
yes. Yes,
Thank
that's
God.
one thing about quarantine. I'm not carrying the bass everywhere, but, um, yeah, it's, the string length, depending on the bass. Yeah, I think you have to get a bass with an agreeable string length
Yeah, that's right. I
because you can really, you can stress your hands trying to stretch. You have to really stretch
mhm,
in half position to be in tune.
that's right.
So if it yeah.
For non-bass players, the string length determines the longer the string length, the more you have to stretch it, sort of separate your fingers from each other when you play. So
Yeah.
I totally agree. And talking about also the smaller instrument, that means smaller string lengths. So these smaller kids or people with smaller bodies, which aren't as tall and big as a Rufus Reed or whatever, Ron
Yeah.
Carter, they can now comfortably play the instrument
Yeah.
because of that, and because of the sloping shoulders versus the shoulders that go out like this, and
Yes.
like that. So they have more of the sloping shoulders that you can get around. I love that.
Yes, I do too. Yeah, great improvements in things like that over the
Yeah.
years.
So do you have a
Def
bass that you're happy with?
Yeah, it's a mess, my bass, meaning that there's many, many, many cracks all over it, and, I would never fly with it, I don't think it's very stable. It's a very stable instrument. I
Right.
love the sound. I love the way it records so
Mhm.
evenly. It's a Jusek bass.
Mhm.
Which is common for bass players because the sound is very clear with
Mhm.
a good punch. And yeah, I've had it for quite a while now. I had a German flatback, but I found that the first winter here, I wasn't used to the winters here. I'm an Aussie girl. I like I'm used to subtropical weather, and I bring my bass over from Australia with the flatback, and it just sank. The
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
bass sank in with the first winter, and it
Wow.
lost sound. So, maybe I had it too close to the radiator. I'm not sure, but, I ended up selling that bass 'cause it didn't never sounded as good as it did in Sydney. So,
Yeah. Uh,
uh, the Juice the Juicek's a great bass. I love this.
oh
So
god. And for our audiences, um, the base behind this base, the shape of it sometimes is round. So they call there's a round back or a flat back. And it's just of a different way of making it. But um, I was all of that makes me think of the bass players that have influenced us,
yes.
and the common
And
denominator.
you're one of them, may I say.
Pardon?
You're one of my big
Oh,
influences. Just
thank
saying.
but,
Yeah.
you know, you never know. You just play and have
Yep.
fun. And you never know who
That's
you're
right.
touching with how. Thank you.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
one of our shared, you and I love all of those amazing bass players that have given so much. But I know that we both knew Ray Brown pretty well, and
Um, you probably knew him a lot better than I did. I used to go and hear him play in Sydney and New York, actually, and also I had a lesson. So my
that,
exposure wasn't great, but the impact on me was great.
mhm, that absolutely
Yeah.
same way. His impact on me when I first heard him, I didn't even really know how famous he was because he taught that class at UCLA that I took when I was 16 years old. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that's how it started for me. And then after that, he let me follow him around and all that. And I knew that he must be really famous and everything because I had a record that he was on.
Right.
That
Right.
was
That's
all I
funny.
really knew. Um, but how did he impact your playing?
I had a lesson with him, I think I was 20, and it was in Sydney, and it was his day off, and I almost didn't have the lesson because he wanted to play golf. And I think he heard the disappointment in my voice. I said, "Oh, that's okay. Play golf. It's a nice day out. It's beautiful."
That's crazy.
And
You manipulated Ray Brown.
well, he did call back. Originally, he said, I think he might have talked to James Morrison or someone and said, "This girl wants a bass lesson, really?" You know, and oh no, she wants to play. Yeah. And he called me back and said, "How soon can you get here?" And I was half an hour, you know. And so yeah, I'll never forget that lesson because he didn't like the fact that I had 2 gut strings and 2 steel strings at the time.
Mm,
He was right. He was right, actually. It didn't match. The sound didn't match.
mhm,
He gave me a hard time for that at first, but then he played my bass, and it was like, "Oh, okay."
mhm.
I didn't hear the separation of gut and steel. I didn't hear anything. I heard Ray Brown playing my bass, and I'll never forget it. You know, that was the impact. It was like, "Oh, that's how it's supposed to sound." It was really like that.
You
Yeah.
know, it I heard him say this many times, and he would have said this to you as well had it come up. But when he would play somebody else's bass, you know, people say, "Mr. Brown, would you just try my bass for me?" And he'd play it, and they'd always say, "Wow, it's my bass, but it still sounds like Ray Brown. That's
So
cool."
true. So
And
true.
he would roll his eyes and go, "The sound's not in the bass, the sound's in your ear." And that was a big lesson. I didn't understand
Huge,
that at the beginning,
huge.
but later on I understood that, you know, you've heard me say the music is in you. If you
Yes,
don't have a concept of how you want it to sound, then your body doesn't know what to do. But if
that's
you've got a,
exactly
you know what I mean? If you've got a
yes,
sound in your ear, then your body will start searching. Does it have to be farther down, farther up my hand? Do I have to do something special with my left hand, play into the string more, into the string less, all to satisfy the sound that's in your ear?
that's
So
exactly right.
that's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, and you know, because after you've I know you travel with your own bass, but
Mm,
probably there were many times where you weren't able to do that, and you're playing all these different instruments. And the most important thing is I wanna sound like how I sound on this instrument, no matter what the hurdle is, the string action or whatever it is.
yep,
I have to sound like me because that's what the band wants to hear, that's what the public wants to hear, you know what I mean? They wanna hear you. So
mhm,
that's been a challenge over the years if you're not traveling with your instrument is just to
yep,
sound like you. But it all came back to Ray Brown that
yep.
day, you
That's
know.
amazing. And you
He
stayed in touch or you just saw him occasionally?
sorry, did I not really stay in touch.
No?
I
Okay.
went and said g'day when he was at the Blue Note playing in New York sometimes and,
Mm.
you know, no, I was just a groupie, you know? And
You and me
but,
both.
the other thing he did say in that lesson which stuck with me was, "I'd rather hear a bad note, in time than a good note out of time."
Oh,
'Cause
nice.
I think I was afraid to play, I was very nervous,
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
and I kept stopping, and he said, "Wait, stop. No, keep going, you know, I don't I'd rather hear a bad note out of, you know,
Uh-huh.
in."
In good
Yes,
time. Yeah.
than a good note out of time. So he really nailed the importance of time,
Yes.
and it's good to hear that when you're a younger bass player because that'll also stay with you too. It's like,
Mm.
okay, remember to have good time, you know, and it's a constant with me, you know, you sometimes you gotta keep working on it, but it's just yeah, good
Yep.
time is everything.
Right, it is, isn't it? Because you know, the time, that groove, if that's not steady, if our heartbeat isn't, you know, regular, then
Yeah,
the whole tune suffers, and
that's
everybody feels it, even though they may not be able to identify it and actually define it. Everybody
right.
feels when the groove ain't happening.
Oh, yes. Very true.
So what do you teach your students about bass playing? What kind of things do you share with them?
Um, I have some new students now, and most of them came to me because they wanna play and sing. So
Mm,
I devote depending on, where you know, sometimes their focus is more on bass playing, sometimes it's more on singing even,
mm,
uh, all over from Japan to Australia, around the States, and,
mm,
it's been very interesting because I try to devote equal time to both, you know, with singing, I really talk about things that I had to learn when I started singing because I came to singing later in life through the Les Paul gig, you know,
I see.
and, so I had to learn how to breathe better. And it's funny because Rufus Reid always used to say to me, you're not breathing," and I'm I'm like, that's right, because bass players, sometimes we just forget to breathe, And so I
Me
had to learn how to breathe better
Yeah.
and how to get a better sound vocally. That's sort of what I always trying to work on myself. So I teach what I think is, that I have the biggest things that are important for me. Like we were talking about with technique with bass.
Mm.
I think if you don't learn, like I always do this with the bass, that's 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, you know what I mean? If you don't learn the spacing and how to shift,
Mhm.
and good hand positions and how to keep this straight. There are certain things, technical things, I often start with that. And if they're not interested in that and want to learn tunes, I also try with the vocal students. I try to help them with their range. Sometimes they don't know what the top of their range is or the bottom.
Mm.
So I try to help them find their range and then find suitable keys and song choices too. Sometimes they ask me for songs that
Uh-huh.
they can't find or ask if I have a PDF of certain tunes.
Wow. So
And
how would you help me if I wanted to expand my vocal range? I'm not trying to. I'm just wondering what you tell them and how you teach them.
I have some exercises that I learned from actually Catherine Russell's teacher is a great great vocal teacher here in Manhattan, and I have her exercises on my phone, so I can
Oh,
practice them anywhere. And they help sound production, getting more sound, um, even just yawning opens the vocal cords to get more sound out.
wow.
So there's little tricks you can do to heighten the top end and to give depth to the bottom. And I'm always trying to find more notes and trying to work on that. I'm always
That's
thinking about that. There's many, many ways. Lax Vox method's another way
huh.
where you actually blow into a straw or a tube into a plastic bottle half filled with water. And that actually really does amazing things with your voice. So
Mm.
there's lots of things. They're all on YouTube. You can find all these things that really help you sing better.
Wow. And do people hire you just to sing?
I've done quite a few just singing gigs. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
I prefer to do both. It's more of a challenge, and I think one informs the other. Like when I'm playing bass, sometimes it's like, oh, I'll sing. I know how to sing when I'm playing bass better. Without even though I overdub on my recordings.
Mm.
I prefer to do both. It's more interesting to me, actually, to sing and play the bass at the same time.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. You know what? I want to share some thoughts that people have forwarded to us. So it's kind of cool. They've got some really nice questions here from people you know.
Oh,
Really cool. This is from well, you kind of answered this, but I want to make sure that you really anyway. This is from Howard Stone. Uh,
love
Besides the bass, how many instruments did you learn to play when you were a kid? And do you play any of them now? That's the other part of that I'm curious about.
Hi, Howard, and thanks for tuning in. Um, I started. I started on piano, and I did classical piano at five-ish, around 5,
Mhm.
and I did that all through, you know, childhood, all through childhood. I still play, but not as intensely as I played as a kid. I really loved playing piano.
Mm.
When I went to school, they had a school band. They gave me the flute. Much like you were talking about, they pick an instrument. Well, I was given the flute. It was a nice girly instrument. So I started playing flute, and then I auditioned for a band on piccolo called the Marching Koalas. I kid you not. And so I joined the Marching Koalas.
Do you have any photos of that?
Yes, yeah, we had crazy outfits, and we marched.
Share that with me personally. I won't.
Yes, I will. I will send you a marching koala outfit. But my first gig, really, in the States was with the marching koalas for the Pasadena Rose Parade when I was 12 years old.
That's where I live.
So you live in Pasadena? Yes, in the Rose Parade many years ago, and it was with 150 high school kids. So So getting back to the original question, yes,
Right.
piano, flute, piccolo, and then bass.
Uh-huh.
And I recently acquired a really nice flute because I sold my flute to get a bass.
Wow.
So I forgot about the flute for a very long time. And then last year, I got a nice Gemeinhardt flute, and I actually took it out on a couple of gigs. So
Kidding.
yeah,
So you
chops need to work. It's it's practice like everything.
but how funny is that too that you played piccolo and went from there to bass.
Yes, it's schizophrenic. I don't know what happened.
Well, extremes.
Very
Piccolo
ex
bass.
yeah,
um,
yeah. The high pitches got to me. I needed something deeper.
that's my girl.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the singing has helped you become a better bass player?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And how? That's a very good question.
Mm,
Um, it's it's made me really focus a little better. You know what I mean? It's like I've recently started taping myself, especially in COVID. I'll do little voice memos to see how I'm sounding.
yeah, yeah,
And it's a great idea. I think everyone should do it. I think you should just record yourself. However, the voice memos is great. It's very easy on the iPhone.
totally.
And and so I'll notice because sometimes if you put too much focus on the voice, the bass playing can suffer.
Mhm.
So then I have to like balance it out. I was like, okay, the bass was sort of dragging or it was doing something weird I didn't like.
Yeah.
Let's focus in on that again and try to get them up to an even level. So it's made me think about my bass lines and it's also been a fun way to incorporate. I There's a few arrangements that I have that really focus more on the bass line than the voice, if
Yeah, yeah.
that makes sense. But yeah, yeah.
I'd like to hear that sometimes, that a song where even though you're singing, the bass line is um, more creative than it normally might be.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That really is my goal, is to try and even with some standards, to try and take a standard and like, well, it's been done most often this way. Well, what if I change up the bass line or play a cool little bass line and make that the focus of the song, play the song around that.
Yeah.
So it's finding creative ways to do, you know, songs we've all heard before, right?
Yeah,
That's a challenge.
I love that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Howard had a question for me too.
Yeah.
He said regarding composing and arranging, who inspired me to pursue those endeavors and how did I get the skills? You know what it's like. You're an arranger too. Are you also composing your own songs?
Um, yes and no, not as prolific as you are, but
Compare? No, we don't compare ourselves to each other.
no, of course, of course. That I understand.
Because I would be so jealous. You can sing beautifully and play bass. I am not worthy. Go ahead.
Um, it's something I always try to get back to, and it's an up and down thing composing for me. You know what I mean? I don't feel so confident as a composer, although I have written some things that I actually like.
Nice.
So it's like this.
Yeah, yeah.
And how did you get into composing, arranging?
It just sort of naturally sort of developed, unfolded because when I was younger, I was a kid. You'd write these little ditties. I'd play something on bass, and oh, that's kind of cool. And next thing you know, it was a silly little song or something. But then the more I got into it, you're in environments that ask different things of you. So you've got a little guitar trio in college, and you write a blues, or you write whatever, some Miles influenced song or whatever, and it just kept going on like that. And then of course you're hearing all this and studying all this music by all these people. The influences start becoming deeper.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
whoever it is, whether it's Horace Silver or Benny Golson or Quincy Jones or you name it, Duke Ellington, the more of that music you play and are fascinated by, the next thing you know, it just sort of enters your blood, I think. And
Yes, you're
it's,
right.
so I ended up falling in love with all of those people and more, um, and really got bit by the writing bug when I was in Count Basie's band. So that's
Wow.
really first started pursuing because could play all this incredible music every night and uh, discovering that I'd memorized the book, so I didn't have to look at the music anywhere. Just listen to all this music, and then asking Mr. Basie, "Is okay if I write something?" And he said, "Sure, absolutely." And then
Wow.
just falling on my ass, just embarrassing myself so badly with the first song because I'd never studied big band writing. I did, but the guys were so supportive and hey, you got the right idea and all that. So I just
Wow.
kept going at it, and with all of their help and two steps forward, one step back kind of thing.
Yes.
So that's really how it all unfolded for me. Just that opportunity, those people, studying my influences more, kind of what we do with the bass too. I think I'd say
Yeah. 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 Did you have formal studies at any point with orchestration or?
no. I did
uh,
get a couple of private lessons with people. I remember when I was living in Holland, I heard that Frank Foster was going to be performing in Belgium. So
Wow.
I contacted him and found out what hotel he was in and drove to Belgium just to have a lesson in sax soli writing.
Okay. Wow.
Gave me a wonderful lesson on how to write for 5 saxophones in a big band. So you just every chance you get, you hear about something that you're interested in, you just go for it. You just grab it. Uh,
Yeah.
I didn't really have formal lessons and all that stuff. Just the street. That was,
Yeah.
like you said, you teach yourself. Uh,
Mhm.
this okay. Here are some other cool questions for you. I'm so glad these people reached out when they heard that you were going to be there and that they were asked for questions they consider. So this is really interesting. They're asking both of us. Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
Um, that's a really good question. I actually think I'm an introvert, but through performance have learned how to be more of an extrovert.
Mhm.
But I think at my heart of hearts, I'm an introvert.
Yeah, I think uh, it depends on what it's about because I'm definitely an extrovert in terms of music. I want,
Yes.
you know, I'll put myself, I'll jump into the deep end of the pool. I'm happy to be present there for people if they need me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But uh, I'm also, I'm very, I don't know, shy about my perceived weaknesses, and like everybody, I've got my insecurities. I'm, the flawed human being, blah blah blah. But and in those ways, I'm very uh, shy, introverted about the things that have to deal with music. So it's a
Yeah,
mix, isn't it?
yeah, it is.
I mean,
It makes sense for me.
yeah. I mean, when you're on stage, it's always about the music. The music is bigger than we are. So,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
if it requires that you have to sing out, you have to play out, you do it.
Yes,
So,
that's
what an
right.
interesting question. Um, Renee Marie says hello, and
Ah, she's wonderful. I think she's fantastic.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
she was wondering about you and wondered what new skills or interests or hobbies have you discovered in this COVID period?
Excellent question. Very, very good question. I've tried to keep myself busy with many different things.
Hmm?
Uh, uh, I loved cooking before COVID. I've
Mm.
just been able to explore it more in COVID.
Yeah.
explore more cuisines of different all around the world and practice them more. So yes, I have got better as a cook. I know Renee Marie is a good cook because I watched her interview and she talked about cooking. So I know Renee is a great cook.
Okay, so can we
And
put a pause on, put a pin in your idea right now? And I think this is the perfect time to show something. Why don't you give us a little bit of an intro to what we're going to see?
okay, so at the beginning of COVID, my husband and I and stepson were here all the time, of course, and we were just getting a little bit bored. So we thought, why don't we put all our skills to work? You love all these food you're making. You know what I mean? Let's make a show. So it was cooking with music. Andrew and my husband, my stepson and my husband were on the production side of things. And I took care of what we were going to cook that week. We did a weekly cooking show to benefit World Central Kitchen, which raised quite a bit of money to feed families in the New York area. So it was a good cause and it was fun to do.
Excellent. Wow. That's what we're going to see.
G'day, I'm Nicki Parrott. Welcome to Shay Nicki Jams, episode 2. Just getting a little bass practice in before we get cooking tonight, so let's head to the kitchen and let's get started. Shay Nicki Jams, yeah. So last week we had the pineapple pizza, and this week we have a quarantine classic for you. Tortilla espagnole, or a Spanish omelette, or in Italian, it's a frittata. It's often called the national dish of Spain, and once you taste it, you'll just know why. It's that good. My husband and I were on tour in Spain last year, in Denia, which is in the province of Alicante, beautiful area that we fell in love with. And we ate this every day because it just became one of our favorites in Denia. It's perfect for quarantine because it's just 4 ingredients. You want about 8 eggs. You need 1 onion, largish onion, yellow or white onion, whatever you have. You'll need a good olive oil because the potatoes absorb a lot of the oil in the cooking of this. And this one's a nice one. It's Núñez de Prado. I hope I'm saying that right. And I love this one. Speaking of potatoes, you'll need about a bag of potatoes. This one from Trader Joe's with creative marketing from Trader Joe's. It says, "Hi, I'm a bag of Trader Joe's gold potatoes. My best friends are cream, butter, and gravy. I dig hot places, family meals, and long walks on the beach." It's just potatoes, Trader Joe's.
Oh, you know what's crazy?
You didn't take it too seriously.
No, you know what's crazy? Because we both know that we both love to cook. I
Yes.
made frittata for dinner last night.
You did not.
I swear. And before I joined you right now, I had to do a trip to Trader Joe's, and I bought potatoes.
Potatoes?
Yes, an hour ago.
Oh, that's too.
Crazy.
And here we are, we're on either side of the coast, and we're living the same life. You know what I mean? It's too funny, right?
That's nuts. So okay, that was a cool little diversion, but I want you to continue.
Well, actually, I find that there's a lot of musicians who are great cooks, and I think it's for 2 reasons. We travel to some really cool places, and we remember meals we had in certain places, and our curiosity about food all around the world. But also because we're creative people, and we don't have to stick to a recipe. We can just make it up, And well, actually, everyone in my family is a good cook, so that it was fostered in me very young. But I want to know where you got your love for cooking.
My mom. It started because I'm the oldest of 7. and
Wow. Did
yeah,
not know that.
yeah, and
7 kids on wow.
Neil. And so I always tell people in our household, and my mom has a great sense of humor because she named us all beginning with the first initial J. So the first letter J. So it's Johnny, Jeffrey, Janine, Joseph, Jerome, Jennifer, Joy. And in
That's
my
good.
house,
Good idea.
it would be my mom going, ja, 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 boy, put that down, you know. So
Too
she,
fun.
she was basically a single mom. We knew our dad, we loved him, but he didn't live with us. So my
Wow.
mom raised us, and she'd say to me, "Okay, I'm going to be at work, of course, all day today. You're going to get home from school before I do. So there is a chicken in the oven. It's all prepared. Put it in the oven at 350, and
Yeah.
and and that would go on for a while, and it would be okay. I want you to season the chicken and put it in, and then eventually it was just cooked dinner. So
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
where I got my first inspiration and insight to that.
Wow.
So
Wow.
cooking is one for you. What else have you sort of discovered during this period? What is your
Um, I've always loved being outside, being outdoors, being in nature.
hmm,
And I think that's been a necessary, mental health aspect of being at home, not being on the road, is to get out there and get on a bike and walk. And
yeah.
I've explored parts of Connecticut. I've seen so much of Connecticut now, and I didn't know about trails that were near me that are really pretty, really beautiful, even in the cold weather that we're in right now. I have to get out and I have to explore different areas. That's important to me. I can't be inside 24 hours a day, so
Hmm,
I've enjoyed nature a lot. And I love reading, and of course, I'm doing like everyone else. There's Netflix, there's other things, but I'm curious like you are. I'm curious about a lot of things,
mhm, mhm,
and so music's just one component of all the things that I'm interested in and love doing. So
mhm, mhm.
that's what I've been indulging in.
Yeah, that's great. Um, Interesting question from you're always going to get an interesting question from Kurt Elling, right?
Oh,
Um, so Kurt, bless his soul, um, he said to you,
yeah.
you move so easily between genres. Are you ever conscious of stylistic self editing when you move from one genre to the next? Do you, for instance, find yourself hearing Etta Jones or maybe Shirley Horn in the back of your mind when you're singing with or for jazz people rather than, say, Aretha Franklin or some of the gospel R&B influence? So are you consciously using your influences when you sing?
Consciously, that's a very, very good question. I think whether you sing or not, I know that you probably would agree with this, that you have your favorite versions of songs
Hmm, hmm.
sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
I think that informs how you perform it, and for me, it's, um, if I copy something from Frank Sinatra, for instance, because I love his version of a lot of songs actually,
Yeah.
it's not gonna come out quite Frank Sinatra, so I can steal from the best. I always have, and I always will. I don't want to, um, I don't wanna copy anybody. It's tough, because some of those influences are very strong, and yes, sometimes the phrasing comes out like
Hmm,
XYZ,
hmm.
and I don't think you can help that, and I kinda just go with it.
Me too.
Because obviously I like it. If I'm influenced by Nancy Wilson and you name it, Billy and all that, of course, I've listened to so much of them that it's probably, gets mixed up and comes out, especially with certain songs. There are certain songs that you can't get away from,
Mm,
Eddie James at last, or whatever it is. It's like you can't get away from that. That is the gold standard, you
mhm.
know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you don't want to copy it, but you want to at least listen to it and figure out, why is this so good?
Uh, you know,
um,
what is because I so agree with you, and also how you perceive that, because people often we've got students, they're so concerned about copying someone else. Well, I don't want to copy anybody else. Versus, like you said, really embracing it, steal from the best,
Yep.
understanding that it's just going to be a portion of your blood type.
Yep.
It's eventually you're going to you're that's the other thing I'm really I take issue with, is people saying that you need to find your own voice.
Yes.
I think that you have your own voice, but your
Mm,
voice, like you as a person, is always changing. you know
right.
you and I listened to our music 5 years ago or 10 years ago. We're
Yeah.
different people and players now. I mean, that was
That's
a,
right.
a very fun, cool snapshot of that time. But
Right.
now, so you had your voice, I had my voice 10 years ago, but our voice now has changed. So, and you never discover when you have your own voice. You don't wake up on a Thursday morning and go, "Ha, finally got it. My voice. There it is." You know,
That's a very, very good point. It's
people,
always
I don't know,
changing.
search,
Music's always changing.
it's
That's
always
very true.
it's always changing. We're always changing.
Yes,
Uh, but anyway, didn't mean to.
that's a very good point. No, I like that point a lot. That's a very good point.
Um, so the other kind of fun question from our dear friend Ann Hampton Calloway,
Yes,
and
I am.
she says hello and asks you, how do American audiences compare with other audiences from other parts of the world?
Very good question.
Mm,
Um, that depends on a lot of factors. Uh, Japanese audiences have been very good. I know you've been also to Japan a lot, John, but I was fortunate to do a few records with Venus Records, and they did quite well in Japan. So when I go there, it's really neat to be in an audience, to be performing for people. And there are young women sitting in the audience mouthing the lyrics with me. I'm like, because they have those albums, and they're singing along with me.
oh, cool.
And it's very charming. And so Japanese audiences have really spoilt me, because they turn up, and they love this music. They love jazz.
Mm,
And I love Japan. I love the whole country. It's a beautiful place,
yeah.
a very musical place, and the food is great, right, John? We like the food.
Love it.
So, so, and that's different from Europe. Europe, I am often in Germany and Switzerland, and often when I'm there, I play an older style of jazz, because the musicians that I know in that area are playing a little more traditional.
Mhm.
So I have to switch gears a little bit, and make sure that I'm playing in that groove with them. Very important.
Yeah.
And that's different again to gigs that I do here, and then it's different again to gigs as a leader
Mhm.
is completely different to side person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be flexible, and you have to try to read the room, right? And sort of know what's required of you at the gig. When I do go to Japan, the promoter Takao, I know you probably know him,
Yeah. Sure.
and he says, I'd like you to sing this song and that song tonight. And I'm like, oh boy, that's been a while. Oh, I don't even know the lyrics. Oh, let me see. And I'll go between sound check and the gig, I'll go and write down the lyrics and learn it.
Right.
And I realized that when I did that, when I performed the songs that Takao liked, we'd go or get taken out to Korean barbecue and great restaurants. So I thought, oh, that's an easy one. Just do the songs that the promoter wants and have great food after the gig. So, you want to keep your promoter and your audience happy. And so that's important wherever you are in the world. I mean, know what the gig is, and try to pick the repertoire that's right for that gig, for the band you're with, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I'm mad that I didn't know that about Takao. I could have think of the meals I could have had.
and boy, did he love Ray Brown.
Yeah, he
Didn't
did.
Yeah, he loved Ray Brown.
So
Yeah.
if you were to close your eyes, just this is an extension of that question. If you were to close your eyes, um, and you're on stage and you're playing, would you be able to tell the difference between a Japanese audience and a German or Austrian or Swiss audience?
Um, it's a really it's a very good question. I find that Japanese audiences clap more. You know, they clap on 2 and 4. There's, like, a more interaction from the Japanese audiences.
Mhm.
Uh, Boy, is that a good question.
Oh,
Um, there is a different energy. There is. You
yeah.
know, there is a cultural energy that goes on. So
Yeah.
I would say yes, although I haven't that's a very good question.
But you said the magic word for me, which is energy. And you're
Yeah.
right. That is it's very thick. You can really feel,
Mm,
people give energy, therefore we are absorbing that energy. It's funny you
absolutely.
mentioned the Japanese uh, clap more on 2 and 4, etc. I find, because I'm a little older than you, I find that to be something that has developed as music has gone up. Because when I first started touring in Japan, they were extremely polite, if you will, in during the concerts and not clapping along with the music and waiting until the end of the song before they would burst into exuberant
Right.
applause. And you're right, as time has gone on, now I find them uh, being more involved
Yes.
the way
Definitely.
the American audiences that we're used to are, for instance.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's fat. It's
Yeah,
really
that's very interesting.
never thought about this stuff. Uh,
Yeah, me either.
Horizon. Now that you've had all this time to develop where you're headed, what can we look forward to?
I did a, recording recently, and that was actually a remote recording, so, for Arbus Records. So
Remote.
I
How was it?
remote. In fact, Larry Fuller and I were in the studio together because at that time in COVID, we could only really have 2 people in
Hmm.
the studio, so we recorded together, and then I sent those tracks to Lewis Nash in Phoenix, Arizona, and another guitar then the tracks to be overdubbed on guitar by David Blinkhorn in France,
Wow.
and also Harry Allen in, New Jersey, so, um, it I mean, doing jazz with this way is a challenge,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's mostly sort of repertoire from the '70s and influences of that. So it was able to work because of the repertoire we chose, but I chose,
That's
and so that was really fun, and it's good to have projects at the time we're in. You know what I mean? It's just really good to okay, what's my next project?
yeah. When is it coming out, by the way?
Next year sometime,
Okay.
probably early spring, perhaps.
Yeah. People
Yeah.
need to get that.
Hmm.
Be the first in
Yeah.
line. And we can always go to your website for that kind of information, right?
Yep, I think so. What do you have coming up, in the next couple of months, John?
I've got a handful of projects. I think that I'm going to be doing another hosting an interview tomorrow, actually, for
Great.
for Centrum. You know Centrum.
Yes,
Port-
Port Townsend.
Yep.
Yep.
So we're going to have three fabulous artists: Tia Fuller,
Ah,
the bass player Marion Hayden.
yes, from Michigan.
Yes,
She's
exactly.
wonderful.
Detroit.
Yeah,
And also Allison Miller's gonna be there too. So
excellent.
and the whole vibe, I guess the theme is um, events, people, music that have changed my life, basically.
Oh, that's a good story. That's yeah.
Kind of cool. That's fun. That's coming up. And then next week, I'm helping put together for the LA Jazz Society a a tribute to Johnny Mandel. So
Ah,
He was
Beautiful.
95 on Monday.
Oh
So
my goodness.
on his birthday, we've got about 30 plus artists that are
Wow.
going to do a song with, he had, you probably have this Johnny Mandel songbook. It's got all of these wonderful compositions of his, all of his hits and things, and there are 24 of them in there that he chose. So that's going to be the show, and I got people to do one song apiece, and so that's the big thing coming up for me next week, and then
Oh, that's exciting.
yeah,
That'll be beautiful too. Is that going to be on a virtual concert or?
hmm and that's through the LA Jazz Society, lajazz.org. Also, the following day, I'm doing a get together, a duo with Tamir Hendelman,
I
and
love.
I love him too. He's so talented, he's so wonderful. But
Yeah.
we're titling it "And Then I Wrote," and we're just doing
Ah,
compositions of each other that we're going to enjoy doing. So it's all original compositions. So those are the, and I've got other similar things coming up in the months following, but that's kind of it in a nutshell for me right now. But I'm really happy that you are moving forward with a new recording. Uh,
mhm.
and I know we're both looking forward to the time that we'll be able to hit the road again,
Yes.
play for people in
Yes.
venues. Way back when. When was the last time you played for an audience?
Uh, I guess it was March 12th. It was Germany.
Mm,
March 11th.
wow.
March 11th, actually. I think March 12th, I hightailed it out of there
Right.
and came home. So, yeah, I was supposed to be, of course, a lot of us were in Europe. I think a lot of musicians were in Europe at the time. So I had a tour all the way up to April 5th, I think it was. So, um, you know,
Yeah.
and at the time they weren't actually canceling concerts. So, yeah, but at the time we were like, well, yeah, we could probably still have the concert, right?
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
But as soon as I got home, it was like a dominoes, it was, they're all canceled.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Same thing.
yeah.
I'm my last gig was in Cleveland, and
Ah,
I had written this orchestra piece, and we had 4 concerts booked. We did the first one, and they canceled the other 3, and
right.
basically came home. And I've done 2 gigs for an audience since then. They were outdoor gigs with masks, distanced
Great.
a bit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's been it for the last 8 or 9 months. Um,
Right.
you know,
Right.
not telling you anything that you don't already know. Uh,
Yeah. Sure. Sure. It's different.
what things do you want to just generally share?
Um, hmm, good. Another good question. In 1 minute, no. um, I just want to say how it's been a really challenging time, and that I've really learned to take things one day at a time and be very grateful. It's Thanksgiving next week. I just want to wish everybody a beautiful Thanksgiving with friends and family, and really good positive thoughts to 2021. I think we're gonna round the corner with the pandemic, and I think that. We've got a lot to be grateful for. I'm grateful to be here talking to you. It's made my whole week. I'm just
Thank you.
so happy to share musical ideas with someone who I look up to. And
Thank you.
so I find that gratitude is the most important thing, you know.
Here, here.
And I'm certainly grateful to have such a wonderful friends in music, and have a wonderful family. My mom and dad are watching, so and it's in the middle of the day. A Thursday.
That. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'm just very grateful that everyone's well and healthy, and that we're making the most of every day, staying creative.
Yes,
Great, stay creative.
absolutely. Well, I have to tell you, and I'm glad to say this in front of your mother and father. I'm so proud of you. It's what a joy it has been and continues to be to see you embrace music the way you do and bring it to a higher and higher and higher level of expression. It just, you blow my mind. You make me proud.
It's
So
very
keep it
kind.
up. Keep it up. Do we have an hour and a half? I forgot.
I don't actually know.
Kaylee, I didn't even check. How can we
I
talk?
have no idea.
We're done.
Kaylee says we're done.
She couldn't have said it more subtly,
Yeah,
Well,
she said, yeah, enough from you guys.
you're
Enough bass.
done.
Yeah, too much bass.
All right. Well, I'll see you on the cruise, if not before.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And happy Thanksgiving. Have a great Christmas and take good care.
Thanks to you. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so much.
All right.
What a pleasure.
Same here. Bye.
Bye bye.